So, a couple of days ago I counted how many videos I had got for the horror set, and it turns out I have 25 or 26 in total, which, as you can tell, is either 5 or 6 not enough, so I'm having to record some more videos for it, even though I thought I'd finished with that. Should be a review of Annabelle coming up later this month, so that'll be one of them. And then this is a double part video. This one is top 5 older films for the younger generation. That's horror, obviously. And the next one is top 5 newer films for the old generation. Yeah, I know, it's complicated. And this isn't going to be like a list with, say, Nightmare on Elm Street, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Friday the 13th, the original Halloween, and The Evil Dead. No, this is going to be different. This is going to be older films, more unusual films, but films I believe that horror fans should have seen or heard of that they might not have done. I know that's unusual, but it's the way things happen. So, admittedly, there might be more than 5, it depends. The first thing I want to point out is that this is for the younger generation, older films. Any of the classic horror Hammer with Christopher Lee as Dracula. And now, I know that's a bit specific because I think there was 5 or 6, but his acting as Dracula in all of them is incredible. He is one of the best horror actors we have ever seen. I mean, he's been Frankenstein, he has been... Well, let's just look at the past few years, like Saruman, No, not Mace Windu, what the hell am I on with? I can't remember what he's... in Star Wars, I can't remember what it's called, that's awful. But, like, he has had so many big roles in the past few years, but then look back and watch his horror Hammer as Dracula, and then he also did Frankenstein before, which is quite a spectacular thing. Just watch some of these films, and I guarantee you will love them. The second one on the list is... I couldn't decide on one of them, so I'll go with both of them for this. So, this is 2 and 3. Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho and The Birds. The Birds, personally, for me, is the better film. The story's more consistent and it's a little bit more fast-paced than Psycho. But Psycho, as I'm sure we all know, is an absolute classic. It's what basically made the slasher genre famous. And you can't dislike Alfred Hitchcock films because they are absolutely iconic, every single one of them, from their own reason. Like the shower scene in Psycho, the end scene in The Birds, and the bit where the man's getting chased by the plane in North by Northwest. He is one of the most iconic directors of all time, and he is definitely one of the greatest, if not the most important, horror director of all time. I know that will cause controversy amongst some people, but without him, we wouldn't have most of the films that we have today. So, my next choice, this is number 4, is Night of the Living Dead by George A. Romero, the black and white version, not the colour version. I've never actually seen the colour version before, so I don't know how well it comes out in colour, but the black and white, it makes it much more creepier and darker tone to it. The ending is probably one of my favourite endings of any film, and it just shows how evil man can be, not zombie. I will say that and say no more about the ending. The acting's not that convincing at times, but then this was like the first major zombie film, so you have to consider this is iconic for when it was released, and the zombies would scare the living daylights out of people back then. I know that sounds stupid now because they wouldn't now, thanks to like The Walking Dead, films like Shaun the Dead, the remake of Dawn of the Dead. Literally every single thing I'm listing has The Dead or Of the Dead or something like that at the minute. So well done to George A. Romero, because that is a classic one, and I think it's one of the films that every single younger horror fan should see, which is one of the older ones. Now, I had to consider this one because I'm not sure which one to go for still. There's a couple on my list. I just want to give a mention to, obviously, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because that one's a classic. But I didn't want to include it onto this list. I've included instead a film set in the UK. Now, I know it's unusual, a UK horror film, but this one, either last year or the year before, celebrated its 40th birthday, and it's one of the most iconic films that's overlooked because of the remake starring Nick Cage. they didn't need to remake it. It's a classic. It's The Wicker Man, and once again, Sir Christopher Lee at his finest. It's all about a policeman going onto an island to find a missing girl, but there is something much, much more sinister going on this island than a missing girl. Now, for those of you who have not seen it, it's one of those films that you hear people talking about but think, it sounds rubbish, but then you watch it and either you love it or you hate it. I know more people that love it than hate it, to be honest. And the end scene is one of the most iconic scenes in all of horror history. I'm sure that even the people who haven't seen the film before know about the ending where the policeman is put into the gigantic Wicker Man. I won't say anything more than that, but it's classic from start to finish. It's iconic, and if you can, pick up the 5-disc version, because I hear that's the best version. I believe that disc 1's the film, and 2 to 4 are bonus features, and 5's the soundtrack. It's the first time that the soundtrack's actually been released. So, yeah, check that one out. That's my 5th film, and then my next video will be, hopefully, the 5 newer films for the old generation.